We recognize that CVUUS gathers on land seized from the Western Abenaki by European colonizers. We respect the Abenaki's spiritual relationship to the land and waters of the Champlain Valley. We are committed to building a peaceful and more just relationship with them and to promoting knowledge about their history and culture. The sun was warm, but the wind was chill. You know how it is on an April day, when the sun is out and the wind is still. You're 1 month out in the middle of May, but if you so much as dare to speak, a cloud comes over the sunlit arch, a wind comes off a frozen peak, and you're 2 months back in the middle of March. So, little Robert Frost, the sage of Ripton, to help us celebrate April, the first full month of spring. We have outlasted winter once again. Baseball. And coming right up is May, the best month of the year, from my point of view. Brett, my wife, suggests at this time of year, about this time of April, if we have a little bit of rain and it warms up, which it will next week, you can sit outside and watch everything get green. It's a moving experience. So, welcome, good morning, greetings. Welcome to Champlain Valley Unitarian Universalist Society. Isn't it great to be here, so many of us in person, back in our beautiful sanctuary? Those of you for whom it still makes sense to gather together remotely, we're glad we can connect with you too via Zoom. If you're visiting, a special welcome. Please do sign the visitor's book out in the lobby so we can send you some information about us and join us in our coffee hour downstairs in the Ann Ross Fellowship Hall at the end of the service. And do come again, as our services are quite varied, especially now that our minister's on a 3-month sabbatical. From week to week, you'll see quite a difference, I think, in our services, but we hope every time you come, anytime you come, you will find something that feeds your spirit in this faith community. If you have a yellow card, a milestone or passage, please put it in the basket, and we'll read those at that point in the service. Now, I'm Carl Lindholm, and I'm a member of the worship team, and I'm serving as the worship associate today for our guest minister, who's not really a guest, Becky Strum. She's a member of our motley UU crew. And the theme today is Change Through Theater. Now, Becky is a board member of the Middlebury acting community in Middlebury. She's directing the company's production this fall, Admissions. Becky is an arts educator. She has a PhD in performance from NYU and an MFA in acting from Columbia. So, Becky, thank you for putting the service together today. Now we'll spend a few minutes on pathways of connection, the ways we connect with one another outside of our Sunday services. I'll mention just a few coming up, and they're actually pretty much in the order of service, so I won't take long at all. But as you can see, on Tuesday this week from 12 to 4, we're hosting an American Red Cross blood drive, which we do from time to time. Now, at the end of the service, we'll need to move all of the chairs to the side to create an open space for them. So if anybody wants to help me do that, you will be allowed. Also, this is our week to make dinner for the Charter House residents, 25 or 35 of them. We do this every second Monday. And do see Alan Moore, who's our sound man in the back, if you would like to participate in that worthy event. Next week is our Easter service, a special service, and you'll be happy to know that Johanna Nichols, the CVUUS Minister Emerita, who's now active in Montpelier, will be leading us in that service. And the following service is our Earth Day service. Our guest minister will be Melody Brooke of the Ottawa Group of Abenaki Artists and Activists, and Elizabeth Golden will be participating in that service as well. Also, that will be the Sunday of our congregational conversation, which won't be much of a conversation. People will bring their ideas and write them down for their landscaping ideas for enhancing the outside of this building. And it's our Blue Jeans Sunday because we'll be working that Sunday after the service on sort of the cleanup suitable for Earth Day. Now, Doug Richards is going to give us a quick update on the canvas.
Thanks, Carl. No poem this week. Aw. But I do have a quick update for you. And I think we've got a slide. And I'll try not to move around so much because I have sympathy with the tech folks who have to follow me. The good news is that we're up about 25% from last week. That's fabulous. We're up to about 85% of pledged units. The board will be meeting on Tuesday, so any of you who've not had a chance to get to the website or to ask for a paper pledge, please do so. Laura can get anything to you, or you can contact me or Mary. But again, we're up to the numbers there don't match the numbers on the paper that I quickly got, so they're reversed. There's 74% of pledge units have survived. Where did that come from? So we need another 25%. The pledge, we're up to 85%, if I can read that around the column. So we're getting closer to our goal. That's wonderful. And we'll have more to say in the next couple of weeks after the board meets. Stay tuned. Thanks. Now if I can survive.
Let us worship together. Our call to worship today is by Jack Mendelson. Jack Mendelson was a prominent UU minister who led the Arlington Street Church in Boston from 1958 to 69, when it was known for its anti-war and civil rights work. Here in this sanctuary of ancient dreams and wisdom and beauty, we come to grow, to be healed, to stretch mind and heart, to be challenged, renewed, to be helped in our own continuing struggles for meaning and for love. to help build a world with more justice and mercy in it, to be counted among the hopers and the doers. In the face of cynicism, darkness, brutality around us and within, we seek to align ourselves with a living community that would affirm rather than despair, that would think and act rather than simply adjust and succumb. Here, we invite the spirit of our own humanity and the healing powers under, around, through, and beyond it to give us the nerve and the grace, the toughness and sensitivity to search out the truth that frees and the life that maketh all things new. Now, as Becky lights the chalice that symbolizes Unitarian Universalism, if you would, will you read with me the words on the screen in your order of service? May the light we now kindle inspire us to use our powers to heal and not to harm, to help, not to hinder, grant, not to regress. Serve, you spirit of freedom. And now for our first hymn, if you'll stand, if you are able, as you are able. You may sing all the hymns during the service, and soloists and performers during the service will be able to sing unmasked if they have a negative result on a rapid test taken before the service.
Yikes. So, good morning, everyone. I see a lot of new faces, so I just want to say a few words about the Time for All Ages. In the time before the pandemic, and one of my favorite UU traditions, it's not just this congregation, my congregation in New Jersey did this too. The children start in the service with the adults, and there's a part of the service that they stay for every week, and then they leave and go to their classes. And during that time, we have some kind of a story, a time for all ages. Now, we hope that the kids will be back with us soon, starting in the service. They're not here today. But I found a story, it is a children's book, that I just could not resist. It is, because it ties in so well with today's theme. My Night in the Planetarium, a true story about a child, a play, and the art of resistance by Inosata Nagara. And I think we have some slides for this. There we go, okay. So we can go to the next slide. When I was 7, I got to spend the night in a planetarium. This is a true story. Do you want to hear it? Yes. I was born in Indonesia. Only 3 countries in the world have more people than Indonesia. Do you know what they are? China, India, the United States. Then comes Indonesia. Indonesia is rich in natural resources, fish from the sea, fruit from the trees, and spices. So we can go to the next slide. Great. People from all over the world came to Indonesia to buy spices. Some of them, like the Dutch, decided to stay. We Indonesians are really nice, so we let them stay. They stayed for 350 years. Finally, Indonesians decided it was time for the Dutch to go home. They hadn't been very good guests. They stole our spices, they took over our government, and they put people in jail if they complained. So people from all across the Indonesian islands decided to unite and kick them out. We called this the Indonesian Revolution. After the revolution, we all lived happily ever after, the end. No, not really. This is a true story, so things are more complicated than that. Just before I was born, a new ruler came to power. He was a general from the military, and he was used to everyone following his orders. He ruled Indonesia with an iron fist. Lots of people were afraid of him. He let his family and friends get rich while the rest of the country was poor. And just like the Dutch, his army put people in jail if they complained. Next slide. My dad, who you would call Datuk in Indonesia, is a poet and a playwright. He and his friends would gather for poetry readings, and he had a theater troupe that put on plays that lots of people would come to watch. Datuk and his theater troupe believed in free speech and didn't think that the general was treating people well. So they decided to do a play about how that was wrong. They put up posters all over town and they called the play St. That's Indonesian for hush or be quiet. Next slide, please. The theater troupe would rehearse their play in our garage every day. I would hang out and listen. Because I was 7 and a good listener, I was able to memorize the whole play. When the actors would forget their lines, I would remind them. I think this annoyed them a bit. So they finally said, hey, if you're going to be so good at remembering all these lines, you should be in the play. So my dad made a part for me. I got to be a spy. The play was really popular. Lots of people came to see it because they'd heard it was a clever play. It was a story about people who were being ruled by an evil king from another land. but the people united and kicked out the king. There were many heroes, but one hero in particular stood out and became their new leader. But then that new leader started acting like the old king, letting his family get rich and putting all people in jail who complained. Everyone knew the play was about the general, but since it didn't actually say it was about him, they hoped they wouldn't get into trouble. Our family traveled across Indonesia with the theater troupe performing the play. Everywhere the play went, more and more people came to see it. At the same time, people across Indonesia were protesting against the general. University students were protesting in the streets. Poets were reading protest poems, and folk singers were singing protest songs. Some of them were arrested for saying what they really thought. That's when we heard that the general was really mad. He ordered his soldiers to arrest my dad and the other actors. The soldiers were going to come after the play closed and the audience had gone home. So that night, everyone in my dad's theater troupe brought their toothbrushes to the performance. They figured, well, if you're going to go to jail for a long time, you may as well have your toothbrush with you so you can keep your teeth clean. Next up, the performance was in a huge theater complex called TIM. There were indoor stages, outdoor stages, a movie theater, and even a planetarium. During the week, I took Balinese dance classes in one of the smaller theaters. Since my dad's play was really popular, we were performing it in the biggest outdoor theater. The final performance was a success. But sure enough, after the audience left, the soldiers came to find my dad. Next slide. And yet he was nowhere to be found. The theater was empty. My dad and all the actors had snuck out with the audience. My mom and I had to say goodbye to him as he got into a bajaj in the alley behind the theater. Then he headed out of town to lay low for a while. The problem was we couldn't go home either because we heard that the soldiers were waiting at our house. That's when my mom said, "Let's go to the planetarium." So my mom and I went to the planetarium and watched the show. Then we watched it again and again. It was dark and beautiful under the stars, and we were safe. I fell asleep on my mother's lap, and that's how I got to spend the night in a planetarium.
Okay, let's take the offering. Now's the time when we can express materially our appreciation for this inclusive and welcoming community that sustains a liberal religious tradition. As you know, each month we share our offering with an organization working for the common good in our community and the world. This month the donee is Living Lands and Waters. Headquartered in Illinois and established by Chad Pregracki in 1998, the mission of Living Lands and Waters is to aid the protection, preservation, and restoration of the natural environment of the nation's major rivers and their watersheds. Since its founding, LL&W has grown to be only industrial-strength river cleanup organization like it in the world, with a staff of just 12 employees. Spending up to 9 months a year living and traveling on the barge, the Living Lands and Waters crew hosts river cleanups, watershed conservation initiatives, workshops, tree plantings, and other key conservation efforts. An example of their work in the first 8 weeks following the December 10th tornadoes in Kentucky, LL&W cleared nearly 70 semi-truckloads of debris from the lakes. Now, while Ronnie plays music that encourages generous giving, do come forward now and place your offering in the basket here, or you can do that at the end of the service. And those of you who are remote, please follow the instructions on your screen. Each week we also set aside some time to acknowledge those milestones and passages in our lives, moments or events that have special meaning to us that we would like to share. We ask folks here to write down those joys and concerns on these yellow cards. We have none from our remote folks, our Zoom people. Mary Hadley writes, "We call mud season the shoulder between the bigger seasons. Similarly, I am thankful for the radical love delivery time between the giveaway event and the rhubarb festival. I had wonderful pleasure baking and delivering 3 pies to Miles and Lise, Seth, and Mary and Peter yesterday." I think that's a reminder for us to make good on the Radical Love event. And then this announcement from Avi Freund and Martha Fulda. Martha and Avi wish to announce that they will be married in joy here on August 27th. Congratulations, Avi and Martha. We know that there are joys and concerns, milestones and passages that are not spoken at this time but reside in our hearts. Let's take a moment or two of silent meditation and prayer to acknowledge those.
Hi, everybody. Our choir is going to sing for you now. You can't miss them. They're in the stalls over there. Very reflective. This is a lovely piece of music from The Hunchback of Notre Dame, which some of you might be familiar with, Disney film, and there's also a musical after that. And it's just a lovely text about change, which is why we're going to sing it for you today. And they just sound great. The choir, they sound so good. And while the choir goes and gets ready over there, I'm just going to read you a little bit of the text, just so you really get the meaning behind this. It starts out, "Someday, when we are wiser, when the world's older, when we have learned, I pray that someday we may yet live to live and let live." And it goes on and builds to this big moment of change will come, one day, someday, soon. I hope you enjoy it.
When we are wise.
So I'm going to say a few words from here first. First of all, this is a great crowd. Thank you all for coming. It's wonderful to see so many people here today. And while I'm, oh great, yeah, great. Our actors are getting their mics on, and yeah, I'll give you a signal when to come up. But so the actor Danny Burstein, in an essay he wrote that was published in the New York Times last fall, said, "For theater isn't just a form of entertainment. At its best, it is a collective spiritual experience. It is church for the heart and mind. It is shul for the intellect, a mosque celebrating mankind. It reminds us how beautiful life can be and how fragile it is as well. It helps us form opinions and gain insight into the lives of our fellow humans." Susan Sontag, writer, philosopher, political activist, once described theater as, quote, "this seasoned art occupied since antiquity with all sorts of local offices, enacting sacred rites, reinforcing communal loyalty, guiding morals, provoking the therapeutic discharge of violent emotions, provoking social status, giving practical instruction, affording entertainment, dignifying celebrations, subverting established authority." When Pulitzer Prize-winning playwright Lynn Nottage was at Yale Drama during the AIDS and crack epidemics, she questioned whether or not, as an artist, she could affect change. And she gave up writing for a time and worked for Amnesty International. I personally am really glad she went back to writing. Several years ago, when I led my first service here at CVUUS, I talked about directing the first New Jersey high school production of the play The Laramie Project, which is about the hate crime murder of Matthew Shepard, a gay Wyoming college student, and how previously homophobic students who were cast in that play were completely transformed by their participation. And how, over the years, students who had read Ntozake Shange's play for colored girls who have considered suicide when the rainbow is enough in my class told me that it was to them one of the most important things they had ever read, and emailed me years later after seeing a production of the play. And how responses to these two plays changed how I thought about theater and my role as a theater practitioner. So this morning, I wanted to reflect again on this power of theater to change by taking a look at what our local professional theater company, Middlebury Acting Company, is doing for their 2022 season, and why artistic director Melissa Lowry has chosen for the first time in the company's history to have a theme for the season. Melissa, who led her own spirituality in the arts service here several summers ago, received her MFA in acting from the American Conservatory Theater in San Francisco. She was an equity actress for many years before she co-founded the Hudson Valley Shakespeare Festival in 1987, before moving to Vermont in 1993. Since then, she's acted at Northern Stage, Vermont Stage Company, and in several independent films. She was an adjunct instructor of acting and theater at the University of Vermont for 20 years and currently teaches at St. Michael's College. And I'm also especially thrilled that we have the two actors, Karen Lefko and Kimmy Gordon, who are starring in Mako's first 2022 main stage production, The Niceties, at Town Hall Theater at the end of this month. Karen, whom many of you know and have seen perform many times, was most recently seen at Vermont Stage in The Roommate and The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Night. She's performed many other plays there. She performed, I saw her performance at Middlebury College in The Wolves, and she's performed with Middlebury Acting Company in God of Carnage, Richard III, Body Awareness, The Fox, Beyond Therapy, and I had the great privilege of working with Karen on 2 of the cutting-edge stage readings. She's a teaching artist with Courageous Stage's Shakespeare, It's Elementary, and she's been honored to be an actor for Vermont Young Playwrights Festival for several years. Kimmy Gordon, who lives in New York City, but will be in Middlebury, came up just the middle of last week for the niceties, studied at the New York Conservatory for Dramatic Arts. She has trained in on-camera scene study, improv comedy, and theater history and performance. Since graduating from NYCDA, she starred in 1 in a Million, the musical, and she has written her own work, some episodic and short film work. Kimmy's also a YouTuber who creates content on topics ranging from her love of learning Japanese to product reviews. Kimmy has been drumming. I heard all about her drumming last night, and singing for over 10 years, and she speaks fluent Jamaican patois. So, Melissa, why don't you come up, and actors, you can take your places. Melissa and I are going to chat a little bit.
But it's not, oh, there we go, yeah.
So, Melissa, thanks so much for being here. I just want to go back first to a Zoom meeting that you and Gary Smith, our then board chair, had in 2020. Our 2020 season was postponed due to the pandemic. The country was reeling with the continued perpetration of police brutality and civilian brutality against people of color, the murders of George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, to name only a few. Can you share a bit about what we decided at that meeting? With no season, with all of these things happening in the world, how did we decide to continue on and do theater?
Yeah, I think we struggled to figure out some way to address the tumult in the world, and we wanted to do something to respond to what was going on with all those murders and killings. And since we couldn't take to the stage that year, we decided to do something online that would address these issues. And so I went to Bill Hart, I think. And so Bill Hart, do you know Bill Hart? He's a history professor at Middlebury College and a man of color. And I asked him what he thought we could do. And he helped us come up with the idea of an online play reading series that would focus on plays that dealt with race and equity. And we ended up picking, he helped us come up with a list of plays. We chose 7 or 8, 6?
Yeah, 6.
We ended up with 6.
1 a month.
And yes,
For
and
6
so
months.
we created this online play reading series for 6 months. And the beauty of using Zoom was that suddenly we had access to actors of color from all over the country, whereas we can't do a lot of material with diverse casts here in Vermont because we don't have the acting base. But through our contacts, we ended up finding all sorts of wonderful actors, including Kimmy over there, who did the niceties scene when we did it online. And so we ended up with a very vibrant play reading series with great participation from audiences. We assigned the plays 1 a month, and people read them ahead of time. And then we gathered online. We had a moderator/director who chose a scene or 2 from the plays. They rehearsed them on Zoom with the actors who zoomed in from all over the country. And then the group got together, did an introduction, read the scenes, and then everyone talked about what we had seen and the issues that it brought up. So it felt really good to do something to address what was going on in the country.
Great. So that we did that series, and then in 2021, in the summer of 2021, we did manage to squeak in 2 productions that had been planned for 2020. We did them in the tent, a wonderful tent at the Swift House. And somehow, between variants and all kinds of things, we were able to do our production of The Christmas Carol at Town Hall Theater in person. And then after that, I know I was really excited, Melissa, when we had a board meeting and you said you had decided for the first time to have a theme for this season. So can you tell us what that theme is and why you came to that decision?
Well, yes, we wanted to continue the work we started with the online play reading series, The American Dream. And one of the plays that we read, The Niceties, we decided to give a full production. So that play deals with higher education, race, history, who gets to tell the story of American history, a student in The Niceties who challenges the professor's assumptions about history. And we decided to produce that one fully, partly because it was producible by us. It was a small cast. We knew we could cast it. And so we went ahead and put that in the season. And then Becky brought another play to me called Admissions, which she wanted to direct. So Admissions is about higher education and race, but through a different lens, through the lens of white privilege and hypocrisy, may I say, or self-interest. And so those 2 plays in conjunction seemed to me to make up a season with that gave us something to say and something to focus on. So I decided, let's do that. We've never, in advertising this season, I didn't want to hammer too heavily on the fact that we were trying to teach a lesson. I mean, because the tricky thing about theater is people want to be entertained, but they also want to be educated. And how much do you don't want to get overly didactic and say, we're doing a season because we need to teach you X, Y, and Z. But I still felt like this season would be both entertaining and educational and revelatory. So we went ahead and did it, and we'll see what happens.
And just one other thing that we've never done before, it was interesting, through the American Dream Festival, a new theater practitioner, somebody who was new to Vermont, Gina Stevenson, hopped on that Zoom, met Johanna, met some other people there, and she has joined our board now, and she wanted to do a new play festival, which we hadn't done before. We do a cutting-edge reading series, but this is kind of a competition. So do you want to talk a little bit about the theme of that festival?
Yeah, so Gina Stevenson, who's a playwright and an actress and a dramaturg, she dramaturged for their online reading series, but she proposed a new play festival where we would solicit brand new plays from all across the country that dealt with a similar theme. It's called American Dreaming, what the American dream means to you today. And so we solicited plays, and like within 5 days, we had over 100 submissions from all over the country. And we've been culling them, reading them. We're almost done, but we're going to select 3 titles. They're going to have diversity, and sort of they're going to address this moment in our America. And in August, under the Swift House tent, we're going to do 3 staged readings of those plays, bring in the playwrights, and hope that we'll get audience that will participate in the process of developing a new play. These scripts that we pick are almost done, but they could use more feedback probably and discussion from an audience and input. So yeah, we're really excited about that.
Yes, yes. So some of you may remember that, again, in the summer of 2020, I led another service, and that was totally on Zoom. And we did do a scene from the Niceties with Joanna Caldwell in the role of Janine and Esther Thomas as Zoe. So I asked that we not do that same scene this morning, just to give you some variety. So this is, Karen is playing Janine, the professor, and Emmy is the student. And this is a little further on. It's still in the beginning of the play. They're meeting in Professor Janine's office, and we want to just give you a little excerpt from that.
You know, I remember going on field trips when I was little. My school was very into like fancy activities, so we went to a lot of museums, and I remember these 10-foot-high paintings in gold frames with kings and gods and soldiers and beautiful women in big shiny dresses. I loved the dresses. I used to say I wanted to be a duchess when I grew up. And it took until I was maybe 8 or 9 to realize that none of these women in the paintings looked like me. And there were like churches, ships, fruit, a lot of fruit, but never the people who sewed the dresses or picked the fruit.
I know.
It's messed up.
Yes, it is.
But then our textbook, the book you edited, it's the exact same thing. Soldiers, statesmen, women in big shiny dresses, and bunches and bunches and bunches of white men, as if that's all there was in this country.
It's a book about inner political workings, not a general history. But it stinks. I get it, believe me. I hate it.
Okay, well then change it. Hello, you have power. Let me do the kind of history I want to do.
I'm afraid I can't simply do that. Let's say you decide to apply to graduate school.
I'm not going to apply to graduate school.
But if you did, a good grade from me is a signal to my colleagues, this woman has all the skills you're looking for in a historian. But by the standards of academia, your current work is unsophisticated.
Unsophisticated?
You have potential, a great deal of it. Maybe you should apply to graduate school. The field could use people like you, people pushing, people demanding modernization. But if you want to change how people do things, it helps if you're the best. I have been able to do what I want in my career because I've worked hard to be twice as good as anyone else. Find the sources, get the rock-solid evidence, check every comma. Prove me wrong.
But it will always be harder to write a really excellent paper about Black history than about white history.
From this period, yes. That's the way things are. I can't fix that.
If I made just the writing changes you suggested, polished sentences, added footnotes, what grade would I get?
I can't tell you that. It's against university policy. And even if it weren't, Zoe, you are a bright young woman. I don't want you to ask, am I meeting the bare requirements? I want you to pursue excellence. I want you to ask yourself, am I doing the very best I could possibly do?
I can't rewrite my paper that much. I can't get 20 pages of all new, very difficult to find evidence in a week.
I will help you. There's no need to worry.
No, I don't need help. I mean, I don't have time. My schedule is already crazy. I used spring break to do this paper. I thought I'd already done this essay, more than done it.
You would be amazed at what you can accomplish in 6 good hours of distraction-free time. What are you doing this weekend? I have a friend who teaches African American history at Duke. I can ask her to recommend some sources.
This weekend, Sandra Day O'Connor is speaking on campus.
Yes, I know, it's very exciting, but that should only take about 2 hours.
Well, I'm part of the Cross Cultural Alliance, and we're organizing a protest.
You're protesting the first female Supreme Court justice?
Yeah, and it's a ton of work. We're writing up leaflets on the real effects of her work. We're going to be live tweeting rebuttals to her speech and staging a walkout. It's a lot to organize.
Are you opposed to there being female Supreme Court justices?
In 41 decisions involving the racial minority, O'Connor voted against the minority all but 2 times.
That can't be right.
You're forgetting that I know how to use Google. She voted against extra funding for minority school districts.
She didn't vote against it. She felt it was unconstitutional.
She voted against redistricting to get black representatives elected.
There are a lot of good reasons to oppose gerrymandering. She supported affirmative action. I know this. I lived through this. She was a supporter of affirmative action.
She supported the idea of affirmative action over and over again, but every time an actual plan came in front of her, she struck it down.
Does sound like she had a troubling record on racial issues. She had a troubling record in general. I mean, Bush v. Gore. Bush v. Gore, I ask you. God, were you even alive for Bush's election?
Yes.
God. But the thing is, Zoe.
Really don't need you to tell me
A
the
dark
thing.
spot in her career, a very dark spot, does not negate all that she accomplished. Do you seriously feel that a woman who was privy to 20 years of Supreme Court cases has nothing to teach you?
Thank you. I know the facts about her, and I will make up my own mind. I mean, do you need to listen to a speech by everyone you disapprove of? Should I pull up a Dick Cheney video?
So you're going to be so busy protesting the first female Supreme Court justice that you can't do your homework.
That's basically right, although it's a deliberate mischaracterization of what I said.
Spoken like a historian. You know, I never do this. But I can offer you a 1-week extension.
Thank you. But there's a rally next week in Bridgeport for police reform.
You don't live in Bridgeport.
That's why it's going to take so long. We have to get there, and we're doing a recruitment event the day before. And then Howard Stern is visiting campus.
And you're going to see him or protesting him?
Protesting him, obviously.
Ah, well, his jokes are offensive.
No, he supports Israel.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm going to just sidestep that whole thing. Look, I hate to break it to you, but you're overcommitted to your extracurriculars.
It's not extracurricular. It's not like marching band. I'm not doing this for fun.
Oh, look, if you don't want the extension, then turn in what you have and you get the grade you get.
I need at least a B+.
I need a new lumbar region, but I don't have one. You have agency, Zoe. You're making a choice about how to spend your time. Can I tell you a story?
Look, I understand your
The
point,
summer
but if you
between
could
my freshman
try to
and
understand
sophomore
my
year, a girlfriend and I made plans to bicycle from Paris to Amsterdam. And then I got an offer of a fellowship with the Smithsonian, a big opportunity, okay? But I had this feeling, now was my time. If I was ever going to be young, ridiculously young, and spontaneous, this was my time. I chose the trip. Have you ever been to Amsterdam?
No.
I had one of the best months of my life there. But I paid the price for that. The point is, choices have consequences.
I obviously understand
You
that.
are choosing to spend your time, your weekends, organizing protests instead of doing your homework. And that's fine. That's even laudable. But the consequence is your work doesn't merit a good grade.
Well, I need one.
I did not take you for a grade grubber.
I'm not. I have a 3.84. I am on track to be Phi Beta Kappa.
Good for you. I made Phi Beta Kappa. I had to make certain sacrifices to achieve it. Scene.
So I think a hymn is next, right, Carl? Yeah, you can do that. So Carl and I were trying to figure out who's going to thank everybody, but just easier. So yes, thank you again to Melissa and Karen and Kimmy. Yes, thank you. To Ronnie and our wonderful choir for that terrific anthem, to Abby Sessions, Rick Wolfson, Margie Young, and Steve Steve Butterfield, no, and is Steve there? No, Alan. Alan Moore for technical support, to our flower co-op for seasonal arrangements, to Avi Fund and all who helped set up and usher, and Alan Moore and Mike Greenwood for safety and sound and coffee hour. And thank all of you for coming. So when I was growing up, my parents, who did some acting in their time, were great admirers of the wonderful actor, opera great, and activist Paul Robeson. So I wanted to leave you with some words of his today. I shall take my voice wherever there are those who want to hear the melody of freedom, or the words that might inspire hope and courage in the face of despair and fear. My weapons are peaceful, for it is only by peace that peace can be attained. The song of freedom must prevail.